Thank you. Welcome everyone to our regular council meeting of December 9th, 2015. All members of council are present today. I want to remind everyone at today's meeting, please ensure all cell phones and other electronic devices are turned off or placed in a non-audible mode. The timing was perfect on that, wasn't it? Members of council, we established a temporary rule to prohibit the use of our smartphones and other mobile devices by members during this meeting, except for tablets and laptops used for meeting agenda business. I ask all members to please put away your phones until after the meeting is adjourned so we can focus on today's meeting, including listening attentively to all public and stakeholder input, receiving staff comments, and focusing on members when speaking and participating in committee decision-making. Thank you. Members of council, there are a few agenda changes identified on the package in front of you. I'm going to ask the city clerk to review the changes for today's agenda since its publication on Friday. Mr. Fay.
Members of council, the package in front of you contains a number of updates to the agenda. First, I'll point out that there is a separate envelope package that was under your changes this morning that contains item U2, which are the minutes from the closed session of the Community and Public Services Committee meeting of December 2nd. It contains item U4, which is a litigation or potential litigation matter, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board in regard to acquisition costs for a municipal property. And it includes item U5, which is personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose regarding an identifiable individual. In regard to the public agenda, items J6 and J7, J6 being the minutes of the Corporate Services Committee meeting of December 2nd, and J7 being minutes of the Planning and Infrastructure Services Committee meeting from this past Monday, December 7th. The recommendations for those committees are presented and not the full set of minutes. The full set of minutes for receipt by council will be presented to the January 27th meeting, but the recommendations are here for both those items for approval by council today. In regard to matters that are already listed on the agenda in regarding to item H4, which is, H4-4, which is an official plan and zoning bylaw amendment in regard to 17, 19, 21, 23, 25, 27, and 29 Clarence Street in Ward 3. There are some delegations and correspondence. There is delegation that will be listed as item F1. The first delegation will be from Chatel Gachare, Brampton resident, and also representing with her will be Nadar Hassan, legal counsel. As well, there is a delegation request from Mark Donardis, planning associate, Gagnon Law Urban Planners Limited, as well related to that with Mr. Donardis, Wayne Habib, who is the applicant, may be delegating on this issue. There is also correspondence, which will be identified as item L1 in regard to this matter, and it is from B. and Alexander Hanivan, Brampton residents, and it's dated December 8th. In regard to item J7, which are the Planning and Infrastructure Services Committee meeting recommendations, which I cited earlier, and specifically in reference to recommendation PNIS 307-2015 in regard to a heritage permit application for 58 Church Street in Ward 6. There are 3 delegation requests that will be identified as delegations F2. The first delegation is from Don Arthur, agent for the property owners. The second is a delegation from Sarah Pingilly, a Brampton resident. And third is a delegation request from Harry Blackburn, a Brampton resident. I also want to point out for members of council that announcement E1 in regard to 2 awards for the accessibility champions. There's a request that announcement occur at 11 o'clock to allow one of the recipients to arrive at City Council because of transportation requirements. And those are the changes, Madam Mayor.
Councilor Medeiros.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to add for an item for in camera regarding labor relations. Oh, 2 items.
So, Madam Mayor, I understand there are potentially 2 items that would be identified as proposed items U6, labor relations or employee negotiations, a collective agreement matter, or U7, labor relations or employee negotiations, a collective agreement matter, and both of those matters have been reviewed by the city solicitor.
Okay. Councillor Moore.
Thank you. This is a request, Madam Mayor. The handout today for the in-camera additions are rather substantial in nature. We'll have had no opportunity to read them. So I'm going to ask that we take between our recess of the public session and the commencement of our in-camera, give us at least a half an hour in between so that we can read those reports and be prepared for in-camera.
Mr. Clerk? Is that the will of council? Staff, I think we'll be going over it. I haven't
Well,
looked at them
they're
myself.
quite substantial in nature. I'd like an opportunity to review them and see what questions I might have.
Acting CAO?
Through Madam Mayor, I think it's absolutely appropriate that council be given time to read the material. It is substantial, but I would suggest that we do that in the in-camera format.
I don't really care as long as we have the
Yeah,
time
I
to
just want
review
you,
the
I do want you to
documents.
have the time. I just suggest we do that in the...
In that setting?
Pardon me?
In that setting?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
It's fine with me.
Okay,
Thank you.
Councillor Bowman?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to add one name to E4 for the special recognitions.
A name? Yeah.
Oh, the name is Myrna Adams.
Okay. Councillor Dillon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to add an item, an update to FCM Board of Directors meeting.
Madam Chair, that proposed item then would be item P1. And I understand there's a report from the FCM Board of Directors meetings from November 17th to 20th that will be distributed if that item's added to the agenda.
Okay, so it'll be P1.
P1, all right.
Councillor Gibson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wonder if we could be a little, I didn't hear everything that Councilor Madero said, but could we be a little more specific of what that item is? Because it might put some of us in conflict.
Councillor, I believe it's an update with regards to labor negotiations.
For what,
So I think that my advice to you is you want to declare a conflict on 7, U7.
is that what we're talking about? Is that the added item that we're in there?
It's one that we've separated them so that there's two, and that what item you would be concerned about is U7.
Yeah, I know it's in the agenda, but I don't know what's being added.
It's just, it's
What stated wasn't specific to what union.
Mr. Fay?
Sorry, my apologies, Mayor Jeffrey. Proposed item U6 is in regard to the part-time workers under QP, and item U7 is in regard to the Amalgamated Transit Union,
Okay, then I
collective
would
agreement status.
That's what I need to hear. That wasn't said. I'm going to declare a conflict when it comes to that time. Conflict of interest. I didn't know what it was, so.
When we get there?
When I get there,
Yeah,
yeah.
when we get there. We separated it for that reason, so it would be easier for...
But it wasn't said out loud, so we
Yeah.
didn't have no idea what the added item was. Sorry, my
No,
throat's...
you're right. Councilor Fortini?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I have to do the same when we get there, or can I do it now for the non-union part-time?
There's, the next item of business after
When I get
approval of the
there.
agenda is declarations of conflict.
And now you know which item is which, right? They're not together. They were originally a together item. Okay? Any other items for the agenda? Okay, I have a motion moved by Councillor Bowman, seconded by Councillor Willens, that the agenda for the regular council meeting of December 9th as amended be approved as printed and circulated. All those in favor? All those opposed? That's carried. Any declarations of conflict of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Councillor Gibson.
Yes, now that I know, Madam Mayor, I'll declare a conflict on the added item U7 that it pertains to transit union, as my son works for transit.
Councillor Fortini.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to clear the conflict as my daughter works part-time for Parks and Rec.
Through you, Mayor Jeffrey, there's two items, U6 and U7. Where does your...
U6, I think it's part-time, yeah.
Mr. Clerk, I also wish to declare a conflict on U7, as my son is an employee in the transit. Okay. Any other conflicts? Okay, Council, we're at the adoption of our minutes. This is the next item of public business on today's council agenda. This is item C. We have one set of minutes. I have motion by Councillor Willens, seconded by Councillor Bowman, that the minutes of the regular City Council meeting of November 25th to the council meeting of December 9th be approved as printed and circulated. Comments or questions? All those in favor? All those opposed? That's carried. We're at item D. The items listed with an asterisk on the agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial. The consent motion is to adopt this matter on today's agenda without need for a separate discussion on the item unless a member requests a separate discussion. There are a few items listed for the consent motion today. Item H4-4 is removed from consent as we have a delegation on this item. Does any member wish to add or remove from the consent motion any item on the agenda? Seeing no speakers, it's moved by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Willens. The consent agenda. All those in favor? All those opposed? That's carried. We now move on to part of the agenda dealing with announcements. Today we have 6 announcements. We're going to be dealing with item E1 at the end of the announcements if our delegation is here. And we're going to move on to item E2, which is to recognize Walid Wasseh, City of Brampton Security Officer, for life-saving actions in Chinguacousy Park. Mr. John Ryan, Supervisor, Security Operations Public Services, is here to make this announcement. I'm the council sponsor, and I'll make a few comments after John speaks. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Mayor, members of council. My name is John Ryan, Operations Supervisor of Corporate Security. I'm here today to introduce Walid Wasseh. He's one of our mobile patrol officers, constantly driving around the city, checking our sites, our parks, our recreation centers, and our libraries. On November 14th, Walid was doing a patrol of Chinguacousy Park when he noticed an elderly male struggling in the water of the paddle boat water area. Walid quickly made his way over to the area, was able to get close enough to the dock. The gentleman wasn't too far away from the dock. He threw his jacket in and was able to pull him kind of to the dock. Fortunately, when Walid pulled him onto the dock, he had stopped breathing. Walid quickly then did CPR and was able to get him breathing again. Luckily, with emergency services, the gentleman was sent to a hospital in stable condition and is in good condition now. On behalf of corporate security in the city, I definitely want to thank Walid for his service. Very heroic, and we're very proud to have him on our team.
So I asked if we could do this in this public setting. We did a little ceremony out in the downstairs in the atrium, I guess a couple weeks ago, and I thought this was a pretty amazing story that could have had a very bad outcome. And Walid was very humble about what he'd done, but you changed somebody's life and a whole family. So, thank you.
Thank you so much.
And I guess we'll take a picture of it.
Judge at the top, discuss it, doesn't
Get back to work.
Thank you so much.
Our next announcement is regarding, this is E3, Brampton's New Year's Eve celebration. Janet Proctor, manager, and Kristen Fernandez, senior event specialist, festivals and special events, Office of the Chief Operating Officer, are here to make this announcement. Councillor Moore is the council sponsor for this announcement. Councillor Moore, did you want to speak now or afterward? Okay. Welcome.
Good morning. Good morning, Madam Mayor, members of council, executive leadership team, and members of the public. I'm very pleased to be here today with one of my senior event specialists, Kristen Fernandez, to tell you about all the exciting plans that we have for this New Year's Eve celebration in downtown Brampton. 2015 has been a very exciting year for our events. Record-breaking crowds attended this year's Brampton and the Flower City Parade, and our Canada Day in Chinguacousy Park attracted close to 100,000 Brampton residents, where everyone had a great day of family fun and entertainment and spectacular fireworks. This year, the city's annual tree lighting attracted record crowds again, and the expansion and programming of the BIA, the downtown Christmas market, kept the downtown hopping all weekend. This year, we will once again close off the 2015 event season with an exciting New Year's Eve celebration. At this time, I would like to pass the mic over to Kristen, who's going to tell you about all the great things that are going to be happening on New Year's Eve.
Good morning. I'm here today to bring you all the details for this year's New Year's Eve celebration. As always, the event will feature a multitude of free activities and entertainment for the whole family to enjoy. Gage Park has been designated the family zone, where you'll find classic New Year's Eve traditions such as ice skating, marshmallow roasting, and live music. There will be an amazing food vendor set up along Wellington Street, where you can enjoy one of the many tasty treats, including kettle corn, beaver tails, Tiny Tim donuts, and more. City Hall will be converted into the zone for kids, featuring free activities such as the craft station, airbrush tattoos, as well as an interactive dance party taking place in the conservatory. And Ken Willen Square will be transformed into an inflatable igloo, which will act as a warming station for residents as they make their way through the downtown core. Here you will see a schedule of the events taking place in the kids zone. There will be a live meet and greet with Kung Fu Panda, the Lollipop Girls, a roaming magician, and a puppeteer. Once again, Garden Square will be transformed into the concert zone, where residents of Brampton will enjoy great New Year's entertainment. The concert zone lineup will feature a local band by the name of Stereo Kid, who will kick off the live entertainment at 8:30 p.m., followed by a fireworks show off the roof of the Rose Theatre. Next up is the opening act, a rising Canadian star on the top of the Canadian and U.S. charts, Coleman Hell, followed by six-time Juno Award winners, the Sam Roberts Band, headlining at 10:30 p.m. Finally, at midnight, Mayor Jeffrey and the councillors will be joined on stage to count us all down to 2016 and kick off the grand finale fireworks show at midnight. So there'll be two fireworks shows, one at 9 p.m. and one at midnight, both off the roof of the Rose Theatre. Here you will see some additional information regarding free parking in Rose Theatre, City Hall, West Tower, Nelson Square, John Street, parking garages. Road closures in the downtown core will begin at 5 p.m. and reopen again at 1 a.m. You can see all of those details at brampton.ca. To get to the event, we're encouraging residents to ride Brampton Transit for free. All routes will begin at 7 p.m. They'll be free for all residents. Please, again, visit brampton.ca for all of the details. We are very excited about this year's New Year's Eve event and invite all residents of Brampton to dress warm, come out with their families and friends, and enjoy a fun, free event in our beautiful downtown core and ring in the new year. Thank you.
Thank you both. Councillor Moore, did you want to add anything?
Good, thank you. Well, I think today's announcement is a reminder to all of our residents and taxpayers that there's always something to do in Brampton, and it's either free or affordable across the various age groups. I'm really pleased, and I'm sure that our residents are as well, that you're reintroducing the fireworks at 9 o'clock so that you can have fireworks for the young kids and the older kids as well. It seems it's something that nobody ever gets really tired of. The trifecta event of the tree lighting, the Santa Claus Parade and the Winter Market was just an overwhelming success, as you said. I think we're all praying for nice weather. 2015 has been a year of wonderful weather for all of these events that are taking place, whether it's the Farmers Market or the weekend of the Santa Claus Parade. We had a meeting last night, some members of council at the BIA meeting, the Downtown Business Improvement, and they were just overwhelmed at the support and the success of the Christmas market at Garden Square. So it's going to be a wonderful evening. Thank you for all your efforts. For staff to have to work on that evening when everybody else is celebrating, I'm sure is something that, I know that you love what you do. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
E4 is the announcement with regards to the recognition of 2 Brampton residents of the 2015 Ontario Senior Achievement Awards. The council sponsor is Councillor Bowman. And Councillor Bowman, you get the floor. Can you put yourself on the board?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. And this is E4 is where we added Myrna on here. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce, and I'd like them to stand up as I speak about them, and then we'll come down for a picture. We've got some extraordinary seniors living in this city, and I think it's great that we can recognize them for the awards that they've won. So I'd like to introduce Myrna Adams first. She also sits on our Seniors Council, and if you've ever heard her laugh, you know exactly who she is. She recently, in October, was the recipient from the Peel Elder Abuse Prevention Network. She won their award. And that award is for senior volunteers for their outstanding contributions to the community of Peel. And I'll just read a couple of things that were written about Myrna. She's been volunteering with Costi for the last 6 years, and she acts as a mentor for our newcomer youth in grades 9 to 12. In keeping with Myrna's generous spirit, she engages youth in her efforts to improve the lives of the less fortunate. She assisted in donating produce from the garden that they grow to the Knights Table. So she also provides food to another great charitable organization here in Brampton, and that helps feed the needy. So it's a double barrel with Myrna, and I thank you very much for your contributions to the region of Peel, and congratulations on your award. Thank you. The second gentleman I'd like to introduce is a very humble man. He's done a lot of great things in the city of Brampton. Mohan Singh Hirabangu. He is a key fundraiser for the Terry Fox Foundation. You will see him at all the local Terry Fox runs out in the wards 3 and 4. And he's an organizer of the city's Terry Fox Run in support of cancer research. Mr. Bangu has also done something pretty incredible. He has shared the Terry Fox story with a whole new community in Brampton by translating the entire biography of Terry Fox into Punjabi, and then giving out those books to members of the community who participate in the Terry Fox Run. And he was the winner this year of the 2015 Ontario Senior Achievement Awards, and these awards recognize men and women who have made outstanding contributions to their communities through voluntary or professional activities after the age of 65. Thank you very much for your contribution, and congratulations on a well-deserved award. And the final gentleman I'd like to introduce is Mr. Bill Burrell. I don't think he's any stranger to anyone who's lived in Brampton for any length of time. Bill is a World War II veteran, and he's wearing his original jacket, which he still fits into. Congratulations on that, Bill.
These holes are not mock holes, these holes are bullet holes, my son said so.
Oh, there you go. He's a veteran of the Royal Canadian Air Force, and since retiring from service, Mr. Burrell has volunteered with the local Canadian Legion, where he has been responsible for raising over $700,000 through the Poppy Fund. He's also worked with the Red Cross. He worked with the Ontario Minor Hockey League when it was in its infancy here, as well as he is a key contributor to the Canada Post's Letters to Santa program. So congratulations, Mr. Burrell, on an award well-deserved for senior achievements for Ontario. Thank you very much. So if we could have the 3 award winners down the front, and Madam Mayor, if you'd like to come and take pictures.
I ate whatever, and good used to be. And I haven't had a drink all day.
Of course, it's midnight, you can't take it, but still I will
One more picture.
do that now.
Oh, my goodness. We don't want to do it too early.
I don't think anyone here is qualified to do it. Say seniors.
Seniors.
There you go.
Take it upstairs, or do you want some help?
Scooter.
You look back and sit down. My dad, your scooter.
Are you going down for a scooter or you want to sit down? It's up to you.
Your choice.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Thanks for coming down. Thank you. Appreciate it.
We're at announcement. This is a great morning. I'm enjoying this meeting so far. E5 is the announcement of the Brampton Minor Hockey Gift of Giving Back Food Drive. The council sponsor is Councillor Willens, and Justin Baker, VP Representative of Brampton Minor Hockey, is here to make the announcement. Is he here? Come on down. And Councillor Willens, you're the council sponsor. Do you want to speak now? Good.
Thank you, Justin. I'm not going to steal Justin's thunder. This is something that Justin took charge from Gene Longfield that did the similar thing down in Burlington called the Gift of Giving Back. And what they've done is for the first year is incredible what they've done for our local food bank. So I'm going to let Justin explain what they did, and if there's any questions, they can answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Council, for giving us this opportunity, and I appreciate it. Back in August, I was at just one of our regular boring hockey meetings, which Bill will know very, very well, and this little presentation came up from Burlington saying, this is what we do in our community, and they were entering into their 10th year, and what they do is they challenge all their hockey teams to go out and collect food and different challenges and whatnot to help out beneficiaries in the Burlington area. And you would be surprised that you think that Burlington is an affluent area, but they actually have more people that use the food bank there than we do here in Brampton when we have 700,000 people here. So within the first 9 years, Burlington was able to collect with over 1 million pounds of food within their first 9 years. And in their 10th year, with the 10th anniversary this year, they just did over 300,000 pounds with 90 hockey teams in Burlington. This was such an inspiration when she presented this to the meeting that I'd already had an email typed up on my phone, and I was sending it to her before the presentation was even done in Burlington that said Brampton was in full big time. So we started, and what we did was we just started with a little challenge. I challenged 56 of our hockey teams to go out and try and collect their collective coach's weight in food. So we did an average of that as a committee with the steering committee, and we did an average, and we thought about 700 pounds per team. That would create 39,200 pounds of food for Salvation Army, Regeneration, and the Free Store Neighbors Helping Neighbors in Knightsbridge, which were our 3 beneficiaries. Lo and behold, our team surprised us, and they came through with 74,215 pounds of food and donations for all these 3 great organizations. And I cannot say enough about the kids and what they were able to accomplish this year. They did all the work. All I did was set it up. They spiked it, and they're the ones that really deserve the accommodation, because they did a fantastic and a phenomenal job, and I couldn't have asked for more. At this time, I want to introduce you to Jean Longfield, and she'll give you a little bit of background on the gift of giving back.
Madam Mayor, members of council, ladies and gentlemen, hello, my name is Jean Longfield, and I'm chair of the Gift of Giving Back Community Food Drive. On behalf of all of our volunteers, we would like to thank you for the opportunity to tell you a little bit about the Gift of Giving Back, in particular Councillor Willens and Councillor Bowman. Thank you so much. They had kind of an active part in it, so we thank them very much. This will be happening each November in Brampton from now on, so that we hope that you will support it. We first started this in Burlington 10 years ago, where we have raised over 1.3 million pounds of non-perishable food in our 10 years of existence. We are so thrilled to be working with Justin Baker and Kim Casper and Brampton Hockey this year. Their results were amazing, much more than we ever did in our first year, over 75,000 pounds of food, and just great participation. And of course, everybody's so excited for next year to see what next year will bring. This is a pure gift to the community. There's no appreciable overhead as we run this on a shoestring, basically. It is all through the willing hearts and generous hands of our volunteers. It's 100% volunteer driven. We do, however, hesitate to call this a food drive, because we believe that label only tells half of the story. Yes, the annual Gift of Giving Back enables us to make a sizable donation of food back to our communities, but more importantly, it facilitates in inspiring, supporting, educating, and empowering our young people. Continuing to educate youth on poverty, hunger, homelessness, and despair, while highlighting the work and efforts of those social agencies which help the less fortunate, is the main goal of the program. Through these fun and wonderful experiences and civic participation, we encourage our youth to live as engaged and active citizens who understand the power of giving back to one's fellow man. We want each of them, no matter how little, to know that they too can make a difference in their community in which they reside. Our hockey partners in Brampton have huge hearts, as they have demonstrated, and we couldn't be more dedicated to a cause than we are to the gift of giving back. We are very proud of our achievements to date, but we have so much more to do. We are hopeful that this could be the first steps in achieving our ultimate goal in eradicating hunger in Canada by involving and inspiring minor hockey organizations across the nation in a more structured campaign to fill their local food bank shelves. Please help our children as they make a difference in their own community by supporting the Brampton Gift of Giving Back Community Food Drive. Thank you so much for the opportunity to tell you about it.
I would also like to just kind of point out the group that came to support us today, and that were a big part of keeping this program up and running, and big inspiration to myself. So everybody from Brampton, if you guys wouldn't mind just standing up to be recognized, I'd appreciate it. Don't be shy. We have representation from the Salvation Army, Major Gordon Armstrong, representation from Regeneration, Bruce Dodds-Hadron. The Free Store couldn't be here today, but they're two of our beneficiaries of this program. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Williams, did you want to add anything?
No, just maybe perhaps if Councillor Bowman and I could get a picture with the group.
Absolutely, please.
Go ahead. Sure. The group want to come down? Got a picture with everybody? We're at our second last announcement regarding the Brampton Minor Football Association BMFA 2015 Provincial Championships. Ed Souza, President of BMFA, is here to make this announcement. Councillor Gibson, you're the council sponsor for this announcement. Did you want to speak?
I don't have to speak. I think Ed's here. Is Ed not? Maybe he's not. Then maybe I can make the announcement
Sure.
for them. I thought Ed was going to be
You want
here.
to put yourself on the board?
Yep.
And then I can put your mic on?
My speaker is on.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On behalf of the city, I'm glad to do this as Chair of Community and Public Services. In 2015, the championship teams were the Tykes 6 to 8-year-olds Spring-Summer Championships. The Tykes 6 to 8-year-olds won the Fall Championships. The Adam 9 and 10-year-olds won the Fall Championships. They lost in the Spring-Summer Championship Final. And the Pee-wee, the 11 and 12-year-olds Spring and Summer Championships. And Pee-wee's 11 and 12-year-olds won the Fall Championship. So it's a very good year for Brampton football this year, with a lot of their teams with a lot of championship wins. So I'm glad to make that announcement for Brampton Minor Football. Thank you.
Thank you. We have another announcement, but we're going to wait till, I believe they won't be here till 11, waiting for Wheel-Trans. So I'll go back to them when our delegation arrives, for our announcement. We're at the delegation portion of our agenda, which is item F. We have the following added delegation, item F1 regarding H4-4, an application to amend the official plan and zoning bylaw, Gagnon and Law Urban Planners Limited, Yorkshire Holdings, Brampton Inc. et al., 17, 19, 21, 23, 25, 27, and 29 Clarence Street in Ward 3. The added delegations are 1, Chantal Vacari, Brampton resident. Is she here? Would you like to come forward? Are you Mark?
Nader Hassan, I'm legal counsel to Ms. Bashari. I think I was added on belatedly. And I'm sorry that our delegation sort of brings an end to the happy and uplifting news of the day, but hopefully this will all end happily as well. I will be very brief because I know that Ms. Bashari wants to make a heartfelt appeal to you. And our request is a very modest one. It's simply that you defer this very important decision until another day when fuller and more complete information can be put before you. I was only very recently retained on this matter and query why an ordinary resident has to retain legal counsel to deal with something like this. But leaving that aside, I was only very recently retained. Ms. Bashari has also retained a professional surveyor who has already visited the property and conducted a survey. All we're waiting for is the report, and I understand the report will be available in a matter of days. We have also retained a very reputable arborist to take a look at the developer's arborist report and also to visit the site and identify any shortcomings. And this is not simply an idle request. There are very significant third-party property interests at stake here, the third party being Ms. Vishare. Even on the developer's own submissions, their own plans, their own arborist report, there is a reason to believe that there are going to be significant impacts on the trees of Ms. Vishare and thus her property rights. Even if we take their plans at face value, the plan affects up to 27 trees either on Ms. Vishare's property or on the boundary between the two properties, meaning they are the joint property of the developer and Ms. Vishare. And I understand from their plans that for 9 of those trees, the plans call for encroachment onto the zone of protection for those trees. That zone of protection is the 2 times the drip line best practices that this city has adopted as part of its planning and tree protection guidelines. So 9 of those trees, they plan on encroaching the zone of protection based on their papers, and for 3 of them, they plan on removing them altogether. And that's based on my review of their materials. Our survey and arborist report may reveal additional problems. I do also note that one of the earlier reports on this matter, Mr. David Vanderberg of the city, recommended that the developer work with adjacent property owners, like Ms. Vishari, to work together on a compromise plan that would accommodate the trees and vegetation, and if they couldn't be accommodated or an agreement couldn't be reached, or if an agreement could be reached to compensate. That hasn't happened. And I know that Ms. Vishari has attempted to reach out, and I understand that those efforts have largely been rebuffed. Perhaps now that can change, and perhaps this additional time will allow for that opportunity. Finally, I do want to pause, because it's something that wasn't clear to me in reading the materials. Is one question that I have, and I have a duty to look into it, is, what is the extent of the city's liability if it approves a plan that it knows will permit one private entity, the developer, to encroach on the property interests of another private party? And that's a question, if I were in your shoes, I would have for the city solicitor. It's obviously something we're going to look into as well, but I did want to flag that as well. I don't want to take up any more of Ms. Vishari's time.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Mayor, members of the council, staff, and public. For the past year, City Hall has become like a second home to me. I have been here over and over again, pleading with my Flower City to do its due diligence of retaining its name, and the one I am very proud to live in. Hundreds of environmental and urban forest reports done by a ton of experts have a common message: the importance of safeguarding and preserving what's left of our small pockets of urban forests. This application to build 36 townhomes in place of 7 detached homes from the get-go was based on removal of a whole woodlot worth of trees, not just on the proposed development lots, but lots also on the neighboring lots and those on the boundaries. I have no control on what the developer does on their part of the land, but I have never given them any permission to damage or destroy any of those on my property or on the boundaries as required by the city's tree preservation bylaw. The most important aspect of city's recommendation report, prepared by the staff and presented on April 13 to the council, has been revised a couple of times. In each revision of the tree inventory and preservation plan that gets submitted by the developer, one thing stands out loud and clear. They have no respect for the city of Brampton's natural heritage, no respect for their neighbor's property, and no respect for what is co-owned with their neighbors.
Ms. Fisher,
the last revision...
Can you just stop for one moment? You've exceeded your time. I just need to get council to agree to extend your time. All those in favor? That's carried. Keep going.
The last revision being very clear and refusing to acknowledge even co-owned trees. The revisions have always come back with no change in site plan and just a change in the color of the few trees along their southern boundary to show those proposed to be removed before are now being preserved. If you are going to dig into the roots and trespass minimum tree preservation zones, even a layman like me knows that those trees are going to be damaged and eventually destroyed. Doesn't really matter if you increase setbacks on paper by a couple of meters. Magic on paper need not necessarily work in reality. The message is loud and clear. Builder does not wish to dent their pockets by reducing the number of townhouses to protect a few trees. Needless to mention, they have in no way demonstrated care or concern about the fact that they will be encroaching, damaging, and destroying private property in the process with the permission from the city to do so. Not sure what changed in the process, but from recommending that they cut down a number of townhouses in the site plan, the city has done a complete turnaround to accepting encroachments into the minimum tree preservation zones of private and co-owned trees to support this development. The signing arborist from Kunz Forestry Consulting Inc. acknowledges the fact that due to site planning constraints, they will not be able to follow City of Brampton's protection guidelines for trees, which requires that tree protection fencing should be erected at the drip lines of trees that are less than 30 centimeters in diameter and twice the drip line of trees that are greater than 30 centimeter in diameter. To satisfy city's concerns for trees on adjacent lands, for the purpose of moving ahead with this once and for all, they say that they will be using minimum tree protection zones in their reports, and that similar measures are utilized by most surrounding municipalities, and that these have been shown to be sufficient to protect trees during construction. What about after effects of the construction? All of you know what happened to the mature trees in our subdivisions in the last ice storm. Many did not survive, and the losses have been tremendous. The fact that each and every one of my tree and those co-owned by us still stand proud and beautiful is a testimonial that all these trees are healthy and flourishing. This has been a very emotional and overwhelming journey for me for a year, and only now realizing the complete turnaround by the city, we have started approaching professionals for help. We have had to hire arborists at our own expense to do health checks in different seasons. After reading that the developer claims that the boundary trees are wholly owned by them in their last report, we had to get a surveyor at our own expense to prove which trees are co-owned. I have stated again and again that we are not looking for any compensation. We just want our trees to be left alone, protected and healthy. All we are asking is that the city follow its own guidelines and ask the developer to stay away from double the drip lines of those trees that are 30 centimeter and over in DBH, and away from the drip lines of those that are less than 30 centimeter in DBH on our property and for those along the boundary. We had also suggested to the staff that the developer could easily move that little park portion to the southern boundaries to leave the private trees and those co-owned undisturbed, and utilize the current park space to accommodate the townhouses that they would have to move from the southern boundary. We are not against the development, don't get me wrong please, but this is not your typical farmland development project on Chinguacousy Road. If you wish to build in the middle of an existing community, you have to work to accommodate that community and not hurt our lives, our homes, and our habitats. All we ask the council today is to defer this until we have our surveyor's reports and are able to present to the city to get expert opinion. And I just wanted the council to bring this to the council. To show you what is at stake. These are all healthy, flourishing trees that in their report says are damaged.
So, Ms. Bashari, I have 4 speakers and
yes,
exceeded your
this
time.
This is the last one.
So can I go to the question, the people
yes.
on the board? Okay. Councillor Bowman.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, I was going to speak
after all of the delegations?
Speakers,
okay.
yes.
Councillor Medeiros, did you want to speak? Ask a question now?
Thank you through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Bashari. I feel like I've said to you directly in our communication previously, I really support what you're trying to do and really admire the courage that, what you're taking on, you and your fellow residents. I do know that my colleague, Councillor Bowman, is going to ask for, I believe, a deferral, and I'll be supporting him, but I'll let him speak to it. Just to staff specifically, so Ms. Bashir talks about, she suggests that there was a lack of consistency on our position regarding the plan for trees, that apparently we've changed or there was a turnaround. Forgive me if those are the words that were expressed. Is there anyone from staff that can talk about, was there in fact a change in, I guess, direction or change in thought? If someone from staff can speak to that.
Mr. Padushka.
Through you, Madam Mayor. The original proposal had certain setbacks that were what we thought were less than suitable for the type of development that's going in. There are competing interests. This is an infill. Madam owner of the property behind this development is correct in the fact that it is an infill. There has to be give and take in this situation. The developer came back in the fall. We took a look at what they're proposing to do for the community. We took a look at the trees. We had our own forestry department come out and take a look at what was actually happening on site. We increased the setback We asked the developer to increase the setback from the lot line, which they did. And we thought that we had a pretty reasonable plan in light of the fact of the type of development that was going in.
So through you, Madam Mayor, again to Acting Chief Mr. Patushko. So the fact that the resident has to pay out of pocket a arborist and other, I guess, specialty professionals, were you satisfied with the professionals which were being used by the developer, or are they credible? Have the city worked with them before? So, for example, when their arborist suggests, in his report, are you I guess what I'm trying to say is that is this someone credible that the city has worked with before, and you were satisfied with the professional sort of plan which was put forth in the applicants for the applicant, in this case the developer?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm personally not aware whether we worked with that particular consultant, but I'm sure we have. This is a registered arborist that the consultant hired, and it was stamped and certified that their report is certified and true.
So just again, through you, Madam Mayor, so from a staff's perspective, where the plan that we have in place right now, notwithstanding, I guess the residents' concerns, we seem to be fine with, or we support from a staff recommendation, from a staff perspective. You think that adequately we are addressing the concerns by the residents?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, we do. But as been pointed out, the property line is a concern. The fact that there's a dispute of where the property line is, and that needs attention.
Okay, and sorry again through you, Madam Mayor, and if it needs attention, so what are we going to be doing to ensure that that is being untangled, or if that's going to be addressed?
Well, through you, Madam Mayor, survey sometimes comes down to interpretation, depending on the surveyor. So I'm sure they're both qualified OLSs, the one working for the developer and one working for the private citizens. The two are going to have to get down and compare notes and come up with where the true property line is.
Thank you.
Councillor Moore?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. So to be clear, when the motion for deferral is put forward, it's to deal with the property line dispute and not the issue around the trees. My understanding was that there was a site visit, that there was agreement on and some changes in terms of the number of trees that would be preserved, and there was also a discussion or an agreement on the method that excavation would take place. And the analogy that was, or the comparison that was used for me, was when the construction took place in Gage Park to construct the skating ring in Gage Park, that there was obvious concern over the health of those trees who are century-old trees, and that there was a method used that made sure that those trees were not damaged and remained healthy, and that was going to be the approach used in this case. So the issue of deferral is around, I mean, the zoning transmittal H4 today could be passed if it was just for the issue of the trees, but it's the issue of the property line that is requiring the deferral so that it can be reconciled. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, Through you, Madam Mayor, that is correct.
Okay. And I guess my question, through you, Madam Mayor, to the delegate, this application has been in the works for quite some time. What prompted you to get a survey at this point?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Until about October, when we've been working with the city staff, and they've been very supportive of this. We were given an impression that the number of townhouses would be cut down from the southern boundary as per the city's recommendation report originally presented to the council in April. And all of a sudden in October, we were told that no, those changes are not going to happen. The development will go ahead based on their site plan submitted by the developer. So no changes in the number of townhouses, and just a little setback from the southern boundary in terms of a couple meters. So that did not really make much change, and that's a guaranteed death for trees on my property.
But I want to separate the trees from the property line issue. What prompted you to get a survey? What made you believe that there was a dispute or a question about where your property line was?
Because in their pre-inventory, the new submission that the builder sent, the question by the city was, can you confirm that all these trees that I claim are boundary trees completely belong to you, as in to the developer? And their response was, yes, they're wholly within their property, not mine.
Even if you simply just look at their surveys, you'll notice that there's a whole bunch of trees either on or at the boundary. And that sort of begs the question, well, do they cross the boundary line at all? Because if the trunk does, then under Section 10.2 of the Forestry Act, they are the joint property of both property owners. And I should note, there should be nothing wrong with a resident wanting to rely on their municipal representation to engage with them and do the right thing. Someone like Ms. Vishari should not have to go out and hire professionals, lawyers, and arborists and surveyors. She got to that point where she felt she had to, and that's why this is slightly belated in the process.
And I'm not suggesting that residents should have to do that. I'm just trying to understand why this application has been ongoing for the better part of a year, and the survey over the property line is just occurring now. And I think you've answered the question in terms of the co-ownership of the trees that were in question. Thank you.
Councillor Bowman, I'm going to come back to you because I believe you were moving the motion and none of us have actually heard the motion, so maybe you can...
Sure. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I know, but I'm going to just let you hear the motion before I get to the questions. Because I think Councillor Moore just indicated there was a separation in the motion. I don't know if that's the case or not.
I don't know whether, I haven't seen the motion.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was involved with conversations yesterday with both the chair and our staff, and then I went last night and visited the property and saw the new survey lines. And this is why I want to defer the entire motion, because according to the new property line boundary, you cannot take a rope and run it through. It hits several trees along the way and includes trees that were currently in the inventory of the developer. So to be fair to everybody, that's why I want to move that this be deferred, because until we know exactly, there is an answer. There is an answer. A property line is either here or somewhere. And the life and the stake of the trees, that's what we're talking about here. And some of them are huge. Some of them are black walnut. So I think we have to be very careful when we do this, and we have to be fair to the property owners and to the developers to determine who exactly owns those trees and what preservation has to be taken depending on the ownership of those trees. Does the setback have to go further? Does the drip line now go out another 3 feet? So that's why I'm asking for the issue of deferral.
So for clarity, it is not just one issue, it's the whole issue. It's not just the trees, it's a property line as well.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, Councillor Ovieri?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Mayor. Just a few questions to staff, perhaps the residents also. The survey that was used to determine this proposed development, was that done recently by the developer, or does the city have records of the survey that were verified that the property line is where it should be?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the city at this point relied on the submission by the developer, and the developer had hired an Ontario land surveyor. This is an old area where there's been many surveys in the past. Every time there's a survey or a split in the lots or what have you, more and more bars are put in place. And when you come out there, there are there are inevitably, now I haven't witnessed this, but I'm imagining that there are several survey bars in the area, and that there's probably, it's open to interpretation as to which bar is the correct one, which one's an offset bar, and so on. So that has to be verified now.
So through the chair, are you saying that there could be a dispute once the resident surveyor brings in the result and the developer has his result from his surveyor, so we have two surveyors with two different results? So how are we going to resolve the dispute if there's a dispute on where the property line is?
Through you, Madam Mayor, there is a resolution between Ontario land surveyors. They'll have to work it between themselves to come up with the solution. I mean, it rarely happens, but sometimes that does happen. And I've been involved in a couple of cases in my history where this has happened, but there has to be a consensus between the surveyors as to which bars are correct.
And as far as the drip line policy, is it a policy or bylaw that speaks to this drip line issue through the chair? Is it just a policy or a guideline, or is it actually a bylaw that has to be followed?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if any of the staff present know the answer to that.
Do we have our lawyers?
It's a guideline.
So it's not really it's something that we should follow for if we're really serious about protecting trees in our city.
Well, through you, Madam Mayor, I mean, there's also the reasonableness factor, and what are you trying to achieve adjacent to the property? As was indicated by Councillor Moore, we have had experience dealing with construction close to mature trees. We've taken special precautions. In this particular case, we've asked the developer to include those same precautions the city took when we were doing our own projects. The developer has agreed to do that, and we're satisfied that if those precautions are taken, that the trees have a very good chance of survival, if not, in fact, no damage at all.
So through the chair, these precautions, do we know what they are?
Well, the biggest technical part is to use an earth saw to go through and actually cut right on the offset line, so that there's no pulling and destroying of the roots, so that they're clean cut below the surface, and when the excavation occurs, that there is no that the roots aren't pulled out just willy-nilly by the excavator. Also, to protect that as you get closer to the trunk of the tree, that there's no construction equipment riding over top of the top roots that are close to the surface. So those are the two major precautions that we insisted the developer put into their proposal.
Okay, so through the chair, is there provisions in the agreement that should any of these trees that are on the property line or within Ms. Shara's property, if they do end up dying in a year or two, that there's some form of compensation? Do we have that in the agreement?
Through you, Madam Chair, that is not in the agreement, and I'm not sure that those kinds of conditions can actually be imposed at this point.
Well, I think the council can pretty well impose. So,
Councillor Spivey, can I get
the other point?
I don't want to debate about it.
Okay.
I think you've got an answer to your question.
The other point I'd like to make, Madam Mayor, is that I agree with Mr. Nadar that a resident shouldn't have to go through these expenses, that there should be safeguards within the municipality and our systems that doesn't require, residents don't require to spend their own personal money in order to protect their rights. And I believe that if the survey is done and the survey turns out that the developer's surveyor made a mistake, someone should have to compensate Ms. Bishara for that. If it's correct, then it's correct. But if it's not correct, then I believe that the residents should be compensated by someone, whether it be the city or be the developer. She should be compensated to make it, to keep the fair system going. Otherwise, if things are not done, people have to go through lawyers every time we go through a development application, especially infill, and then we find that things weren't done properly, then we have a problem in our system here. So I would suggest that when this comes back, Madam Mayor, that some recommendations be brought forward about whether, especially if the survey is shown to be incorrect, that was presented to the city. Thank you.
I think the local councillors are listening. Councillor Bowman.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'll move that item H4-4 be deferred until such time as necessary to permit the confirmation of property boundaries and a determination of ownership of all the trees on or near the confirmed boundary lines.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. A motion of deferral is not debatable. We just go to the vote, right? Okay. So Councillor Bowman has moved deferral of this item. All those in favor? All those opposed? Councillor Pleshy?
To be completely fair, there are other delegates on this matter. You don't want to hear from all parties before you put a deferral on the floor?
Mr. Clerk, the vote has been taken, right? So we are still going to be hearing the other delegations, but Councillor Pleshy, the vote's been taken. We're not hearing the other delegations, okay.
That's really transparent.
Okay. Are they on the list? They are on the list, but we've taken a vote on this issue. Mr. Clerk?
Members of council, as you know, a deferral motion is a priority motion that once moved, there is no further debate of the issue at hand, and the matter is voted on, and it moves forward or it doesn't. And that vote has been taken, irregardless of whether or not there's outstanding delegations. That's the decision of council. If council wishes to reopen its consideration of that to permit the remaining delegations to be heard, that's a matter that council could reopen.
Councillor Moore?
In that case, I'll move a motion to reopen the matter so that the other delegates can be heard today. I think if that was made clear to us, not very often this happens, but if that was made clear to us, they were registered with the clerk's office. We added them to the agenda. I understand that the issue has been deferred, but they still registered to speak on it. So I'd like to move that it be reopened to hear the other delegations on the agenda.
Mr. Clerk? Mr. Clerk, we need 2/3. Is that right? Okay. There's a motion on the floor for reopening of this issue. We need 2/3. If you want to be on, if you want to speak, you're going to have to actually put yourself on the board. Councillor Gibson, on this motion.
On a point of order, can we ask, before we get into this reopening, not reopening, we can ask the mover, the motion is intent not to allow the next delegation to speak, or is intent just to refer the whole matter once the second delegation speaks?
Councillor Bowman.
We need to be clear on that.
Sure. I have no issue with the second delegation speaking. What the motion I moved was, because this is an issue over a boundary line, a confirmed boundary line between one surveyor and another surveyor, I thought that was pretty clear that we're talking about where that boundary line is.
So I think the answer is no, it was not his intent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, so the speaker can't speak.
So, no.
Mr. Fay?
So if a motion's been moved, as I understand from Councillor Moore, to reopen the matter, that procedurally is the correct path for this council to take, because they've already voted to defer the item, which includes all delegations. Council can't make half decisions. They've made a decision to defer it. So if the motion is to reopen the matter, that's a proper motion. It requires a 2/3 vote, and then council can continue to hear the delegations and then consider a deferral motion at the end.
Okay. So the motion is that we reopen the issue, and we need a 2/3 vote. All those in favor? I think that's carried. Okay. Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Bashari. Mark Denardis, Planning Associate, Gagnon Law Urban Planners Limited. Welcome. You have 5 minutes.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, members of council. My name is Mark Denardis. I'm a planning associate from Gagnon Law Urban Planners. I'm here this morning on behalf of my client, Yorkshire Holdings Brampton Inc. and its affiliated companies, owner of the properties at 17, 19, 21, 23, 25, 27, 29 Clarence Street. As noted within the city transmittal report, the development application was filed in April 2014, and since this date, we have been working diligently with city
Mr.
staff
Bernardis, can I get you just to stop? Because I think we have a conversation going on behind you. If we can just either close the doors, I want people to be able to hear what you're saying. Well, I'm just good. When he gets there. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
As noted within the city transmittal report, the development application was filed in April 2014, and since this date, we have been working diligently with city staff to address comments and concerns raised by commenting staff and the public. I would like to thank city staff for their assistance and cooperation to date. We are given to understand that our client's neighbor is now raising concerns regarding the surveyed limits of Yorkshire's lands and the ownership of trees along the southern property line. In response, we understand that City Council is now contemplating deferring the transmittal report until January 27th council meeting. Our client respectively requests that council reconsider for the following reasons. The statutory public meeting was held exactly 1 year yesterday on December 8th, 2014. It is unfortunate that our neighbor has chosen to raise this issue at this late stage in the process. Number 3, it is unfortunate that our neighbor has not provided legal physical evidence to substantiate the issues raised. Yorkshire's survey prepared by a licensed Ontario land surveyor has been available as part of the public record for 1 year. Yorkshire's survey indicates that as many as 5 surveyed monuments were found and documented along the southern property line. Yorkshire has made a conscious effort and commitment to increase the building setbacks from the southern property line. With the exception of 1 tree that is in poor health, no trees on the adjacent properties are to be removed. The last submitted tree inventory preservation plan prepared by a qualified, experienced arborist has been accepted by city staff. Given the level of effort and cooperation between Yorkshire, the local stakeholders, and staff, our client respectively requests that the council not defer the transmittal report but proceed to approve the implementing documents. I would like to confirm that my office has never been contacted by the property owner. Would also like to confirm that Yorkshire has retained professionals who the city itself has retained on city-initiated projects, so they are a credible professional. Thank you for your time and consideration. I welcome any questions that City Council may have at this time.
Okay, I don't have any speakers at this point. Maybe I can go to my next delegation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Wayne Habib, would he be? Welcome.
Good morning, members of council and
Welcome.
Madam Chair. I just want to reiterate what our planner had noted, that we actually hired consultants which were previously used by the city or on various city projects. Regarding the issue of the boundary lines and the setbacks, we have worked very diligently with staff and with response to what the resident is saying about the 2-meter setback. We've actually moved the building 6 meters, 5.8 meters from the property line. We've set back our building envelope 5.85 meters. Whether or not the property line is the issue at this point, it's the trees that's at the issue. And we have done everything with our consultants, along with city staff, to accommodate saving of all these trees along the property line. It's not our intention to remove these trees or hurt these trees. So it's my request to have this project be heard today and be approved today. We have spent a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of financing has gone into this, and it is going to cost us additional time and effort, a lot of energy, if we were to defer this one more time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Moore.
Thank you. Through you, and I think my question is to staff. The report before us is for the rezoning, correct? Is to enact the zoning bylaw to permit multi-residential.
Through you, Madam Chair, that's correct.
So I'm trying to understand, because a lot of things happen once the rezoning takes place in terms of resolving site plan issues and so on. What are the consequences of approving the zoning bylaw today? And if there is in fact, well, I guess in the context of a dispute over the property line.
Through you, Madam Mayor, it has great implications. We really have to know the boundary of the property. At the writing of the report and us coming forward, we had no idea that there was a dispute on the boundary, but now that this come to light, I think the motion that's on the floor is the correct one at this time.
Okay. To the mover of the motion for deferral, it's really vague in terms of when it's coming back. You said until such time. Are you prepared to include a January 27th date on that so that it doesn't drag on? That, you know, the work that needs to be done to reconcile the property line is achieved quickly?
Yes, hold on a second. You have to be recognized. Is that the end of your questions, Councillor Moore? Thank you. Councillor Bowman.
I would.
Well, I'll move that friendly amendment.
Councillor Bowman, I'm going to let Councillor Bowman answer instead of the
Sure.
conversation going back and forth.
I just want to know, is that that supposed time frame enough time for the parties to get together and decide where the exact boundary, which boundary is correct? Because I understand Ms. Verscher's surveyor is putting a report together, and does that give you enough time?
Through you, Madam Chair, I'm not sure if it can be resolved by January 27th, but by January 27th, we can certainly come back to council with an update as to how things are going.
Okay. Does that suit your friendly amendment, Councillor?
So wait a minute.
Oh.
If you want to go back on the board,
Sorry.
you have to talk. Okay? Is that the end of your questions,
Yes.
Councillor Bowman? Thank
Yes.
you. Councillor Moore.
Well, I think it's important to resolve the issue of the trees and the property line. But I think we all agree that this is the kind of intensification project that we need along the Main Street corridor. And so what I don't want to do is to see this investor and investment in the downtown, and specifically in Ward 3, be compromised. So that's why I think it's necessary that everybody roll up their sleeves and find a solution, and hopefully it is achieved by January the 27th. It has been, as I wrote down, since April 2014. You know, that's a long time for an investor who's making significant investments in the city to wait for a rezoning application.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Bowman, did you want to speak again?
Yes, I have no problem adding that friendly amendment, and I will remove the motion. Not remove, I will move the motion again to be deferred.
Okay. So it's my understanding that Councillor Bowman has moved a motion that this item return on January 27th with a report back by staff. Anything else? All those in favor? All those opposed? That's carried. Do we need to move receipt of these two additional delegations, Mr. Clerk? Okay. Councillor Bowman, will you move a receipt of the Mr. Denardis and Mr. Habib's delegations? All those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Council, we're going to move back to our announcements part of the agenda. I believe we have our guests here now. Our announcement is regarding a presentation of the 10th anniversary AODA Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act Champion Awards to Wendy Gross, Accessibility Coordinator, Corporate Services, and Harvinder Bajwa, a member of the Accessibility Advisory Committee. Wendy Hunter, Manager of Administrative Services and Elections Corporate Services, is here to make this announcement and presentation, and Councillor Fortini is the councillor sponsor for this event. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council, senior management and staff, and members of the public are here. I have the honor and the pleasure today of announcing two recipients of the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act 10th Anniversary Champion Award, City employee Wendy Goss and longtime member of the City's Accessibility Advisory Committee, Harvinder Bajwa. With this award, the Association of Municipal Managers, Clerks, and Treasurers of Ontario, also known as the AMCTO, with the support of the Government of Ontario, is recognizing individuals who demonstrate leadership in accessibility and disability issues. This is a one-time award to recognize outstanding individuals who demonstrate passion, commitment, and leadership in the promotion of awareness of accessibility and disability issues, and who work towards inclusiveness in their community. To acknowledge all of the accomplishments of these women would take more time than we've got today, so I hope to be able to provide you with some highlights. Wendy Glass has worked tirelessly as Accessibility Coordinator for the City of Brampton since 2004. Her accomplishments include supporting the AAC, the Accessibility Advisory Committee, through research, mentorship, community outreach, and development of the Municipal Accessibility Plan. Wendy developed the Brampton Accessibility Technical Standards and an award-winning online and in-person inclusive customer service training program. Wendy provides a constant example to Brampton staff of how to make every aspect of community life and customer service accessible for all. I believe this has resulted in a considerable culture shift within the corporation, which radiates out to the whole community. Harvinder Bajwa is the founder and executive director of Canadian South Asian Supporting Independent Living, also known as CSASL, an organization that empowers disabled individuals from the South Asian community to be independent and raises awareness within the South Asian community regarding persons with disabilities and disability-related issues. Harvinder organizes, fundraises, advocates, and challenges us to join her in her quest for independent living for persons with disabilities. She has also been a member of Brampton's AAC for 8 years, advocating resolutely for accessible taxi services, and was recently appointed as Brampton's AAC representative on the William Osler Health Centre AAC. I hope you will join me in recognizing the exemplary efforts of both of these women and congratulating them for receiving these very well-deserved awards. Thank you.
Councillor Fortini, did you want to
Yes.
speak as this is going on?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Ravinder and Wendy, I'm just amazed with the great job you doing. And Ravinder, I was over at their fundraiser on Friday, and a couple of other councillors were over. And our city is just very lucky to have two great people like you to promote our accessibility. And I'm really proud to serve on the committee. Thank you.
Councillor Spovieri? Usually you don't get to talk.
Yeah, I know, but Harvinder is
I
my
understand
constituent.
that. So I'm showing some latitude.
Thank you. Just very shortly, and I want to thank Harvinder. I've attended a lot of her events. I missed this one, unfortunately. But I want to say that what a difference she's making to the group of people that she's working with. It's just an amazing work she's doing, and I want to congratulate you, Harvinder, and I want you to keep it up and keep those people, give them something to do and enjoyment in life. Thank you.
Thank you.
You might want to put that up so you can see it. Yeah, sure.
Just say that we had our initial meeting. Okay. And
Thank you.
I think she wants to say something.
you can say thanks.
You can say thanks, absolutely, sure. Harvinder would like to say thanks. Moving forward there you go.
Go ahead.
So good morning, Madam Mayor and all the council member and the staff, city staff. I really honored and thank you for presenting me this award, and I look forward to work more. I have a passion to, for work for people with disability as well. Accessibility is my most passion. So when in '99 I started using this wheelchair, some health issues. So then I encountering so many barriers, accessing services, buildings, especially washrooms. Then I realized how accessibility is important. So as soon, according to ODA standards, every city has to form the Accessibility Advisory Committee. As soon I heard, I contact city and start joining that day one, the Accessibility Advisory Committee. So I would like to serve as long as my time to make sure our city is accessible. And I noticed that since those years to up to now, most of the cities are buildings accessible, and I am so honored to and thankful all the staff working hard to make this city more accessible and livable for all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Wendy, did you want to say anything? Thank you very much, Brenda. Okay, Council, we are at F2 of our agenda. This is regarding item J7, Planning and Infrastructure Service Committee recommendation 307-2015, the Heritage Board recommendations, and the Heritage Permit application for 58 Church Street in Ward 6. Mr. Don Arthur, come on down. Welcome. And Council, his presentation was part of your package that you received earlier. It should be in front of you.
I did give it electronically, just not quick enough. My apologies. All right, Madam Mayor, councilors, members of the public, name's Don Arthur, agent for the owners of 58 Church Street in the village of Churchville.
Go ahead.
So the issue here with the conditions 7 and 8 on the motion put forward to council, I don't believe council has been given complete, clear, nor concise information on this application put before them. Being as we only have 5 minutes, I'm going to ask that we go straight to F215. That would be the front facade for the village for the proposed drawing. Just quickly glance at them. F216, which shows the rear wraparound porch, or sorry, F215, which shows the front second floor balcony. During the infrastructure services meeting the other day, the board chair stated to the committee that the home is located in the village core, that there is no precedent of second floor balconies historically in the village core. 11 Church Street, which is an identified heritage resource, does have a second floor balcony and is visible from Churchville Road on the corner of Church Street and Churchville Road. You can actually see the construction of that balcony from the bridge crossing over the Credit River. So then we move to F216, the wraparound porch. Now again, I'm going to reiterate, there's nothing in the guidelines that say that a wraparound porch is inappropriate or shouldn't happen. In fact, this particular structure, if we move to F219, which is the site plan, of all the new structures built in the village of Churchville over the last 5 years, this is the only building that is being constructed that does not require Committee of Adjustments relief for setbacks. It's the only property that has a large enough lot and availability to position the structure on the property and not requires Committee of Adjustments setback relief. Most of the other items, which were the dormers, items of that nature, we've been able to resolve. I just want to bring back again the situation of misinformation. If you remember back in October when we were here, the statement that there was no stone in the village of Churchville, I rebutted, stated, well, the main entrance feature to the village of Churchville is stone, as well are many of the homes in the village. And the following pages, F213, F214, substantiate that. If you go to F2116, that there's another home with a considerable amount of stone on the side of it. And this is an older home. This isn't new. This is dating back to, I would guess, around the 50s, 40s. So there is older precedent, there's new precedent, and it's not a discouraged item. The window surrounds, again, that issue's been addressed. Then the statement about the wraparound porches and no historical precedent, F2118 and F2119 address that. That is a farmhouse located on Credit View Road. Again, historical evidence of a wraparound porch. And F2120, an excerpt taken from the historical background survey for the village of Churchville, which talks about a porch which once surrounded the house that has been removed, and the small central window over the door, which was perhaps a full-size window or a door to the front porch at one time, which would indicate that even this home had a second-floor balcony. Yes, it is a farmhouse. Yes, it is not in the village core. But there's not a separate set of guidelines for the village core. The guidelines are for the Heritage Conservation District, for everywhere within those boundaries. F2121. Okay, this would be the most recent new build in the village of Churchville. Shows a wraparound porch on two sides. There's good reason it doesn't have a wraparound on the back. It doesn't have the property. The structure is set on the edge of the property. There's no room to have a wraparound porch on the back of that. And if that was the case here, if these people were asking for relief from setback requirements, that would be reasonable, but it's not the case. And then we talk about the front door. The board felt that the glass selection by the client was too ornate. Staff has offered to send I guess an assortment of doors that the client could select from. That hasn't happened yet, and I think we're at the point now where if it hasn't happened, it doesn't need to happen. What they're selecting is commonly found in the village. There's adequate precedent to support it, and it should be allowed.
Mr. Arthur, you've exceeded your time. Do you have a lot more to speak?
No, the only thing is just
I just need to get approval if you want to extend your time. Anybody? Okay. I don't see a mover, so if you could wrap up, I think. All right. We have two other delegations on this. Do you want to hear the rest of the delegations, Council? Okay. Sarah Pengeli. Is Sarah here? Come on. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council, staff, members of the public, neighbor. I was on the Residents Association that began Heritage. This is over 25 years ago. I've observed Heritage, read the guidelines over and over, the first version and the second version. They may be vague, but they're not difficult. They're what and they're guidelines. I noticed in the previous presentation a discussion about guidelines, bylaw, and policies. These are clearly referred to as guidelines. They're quite vague, and they're set up for negotiation. And they are what each level of the municipality, the local committee, which is now gone, the Brampton board, PD&D, planning and infrastructure, and you now at council use as your decision-making tool. There is lots of history in Churchville. A lot of that history is from the 1800s. I don't think anybody knows someone living now who was alive then, so we have to go by stories, because there apparently was a fire in the village that in some accounts left 2 or 3 buildings. In other accounts it only mentions 2 or 3 buildings that burned down. How can we know what is there now is left from the period before this fire? So we have to go by the city's commissioned background study, one done in 1989, one done in 2006, which includes a history, and that unless there is some kind of proof that has come up, I have only heard stories. I have not seen proof of other buildings in Churchville that are not on the record, with the exception of one beside the fire hall that burned down, and that's in living memory. So we have the guidelines, the background study, 2 sets of each, and they indicate that the main street, which is now Churchville Road, from the bridge to the top of the hill, on one side of the street, that's 5 properties, is the commercial center of Streetsville. This is what they're calling a village core. And the village core, as Dawn mentioned, is actually a landscape unit term, although if it's loosely used, then 58 Church Street is behind the commercial section of the village. Commercial being former, the hotel I live in, the grocery store that Mr. Crouch lives in, various cooperages and wagon makers, a livery, all those sorts of things that are listed. We're all on the main street, not on lots behind that. I'm here in support of the application with the 2 outstanding porch and balcony conditions removed. I live adjoining the property. Like I say, I own the hotel, which is across from the fire hall, apparently one of the older houses in the village. We don't know exactly when, because apparently Brampton's records of properties burned twice in the late 1800s. I guess fire was common. So we can't prove when my house was built. It's difficult to prove when most of the old houses were built in Churchville. So I'm suggesting that you go by your own guidelines and your own background studies for the information that you've heard on this application. Thank you.
Right on time. Thank you. Mr. Harry Blackburn.
Yes, good morning, Madam Mayor, councillors and staff, and public and neighbor. I was just going to be very, very brief, but I'd just like to make a comment in regards to, I've been with the village, or living in the village for 40 years, and very involved in various groups, one of them being the Heritage Advisory Committee, which is now no longer. I was part of that group for all but 2 years, where decisions were made mistakes were made. Yes, the guidelines have been vague, and they are now being reviewed and tightened up for the future. Mistakes were made because 9 of the 10 members of the Heritage Advisory Board were neighbors, and it's very difficult to say no to neighbors or future neighbors. So mistakes have been made in previous decisions. I think this is an opportunity. I'm now on the Heritage Board, and I've been asked by the Heritage Board's Chair, Paula Willoughby, to speak on behalf of the board. We ask the Council not change the recommendations of the Brampton Heritage Board regarding 58 Church Street, Churchville. This is the first application that has come before the board in this format, because it always came through the Churchville Advisory Committee previously. And we would ask that you support the board's recommendations and support them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blackburn. Council, if you want to make a decision about this, we're going to have to bring forward item J7, the Planning and Infrastructure Service Committee meeting, the recommendations. These recommendations were just distributed at the start of this meeting today. Is it your will to deal with this issue right now, or do you want to deal with it in the order with which it comes? Okay. Since there's a willingness to deal with it now. Councillor Willens.
I'd like to...
So we're moving item J7 forward at this point.
Yes, okay. Yes. I'll let the other councillors speak first, because I'd like to hear from staff.
Okay. Are you asking staff now? Are you asking staff now? Or
Yeah, if staff could come forward, maybe in response to Don Arthur's presentation.
I can turn your mic on, so you don't have to keep doing it. Just think about what your questions are. Go ahead.
Maybe staff, I know this is probably the third or fourth time we've gone through this. Maybe you could just do a brief update on the reasonings behind your 8 points that you thought we came to agreement at the last Heritage Board meeting, but I guess we hadn't. So maybe you want to give the other fellow councillors a brief history and an update. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor. You will recall that Mr. Arthur had previously spoken to the recommendations that were coming forward from the Brampton Heritage Committee on this heritage permit application, and the matter was referred back to the Heritage Board and staff to look further at the conditions. And so that was done at the last Heritage Board Committee meeting. And there were 11 conditions that had been put forward to be met for the heritage permit to be issued. And we were able to discuss and agree on 9 of them. And then there were just the 2 that remained outstanding. So there was very significant progress made in the meeting. And it was, I commend both the applicant and the board for looking carefully and coming up with resolution on those 9. The 2 that were remaining, as it's been made clear through the presentation, were the balcony and the wraparound porch. The guidelines which have been referred to for the Churchville Heritage area are silent, really, on the balconies and wraparound porches. There's no specific guidelines for them. As a result, those were not conditions that staff had put forward in our report to the Heritage Board, but they are ones that the Heritage Board feel strongly about and had left them in their recommendation then to Council.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Just more of a comment. I know Mr. Arthur's been here numerous times, but and I don't want to get into a debate with you, Mr. Arthur's, but I don't believe we've ever met the owners of this property to come and talk to them in front of council to see if there could be some considerations made. It's always been sort of between Don Arthur's and our staff, so that's just a comment. And we can go to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Ferrer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few questions for you to, first of all, to staff. The comments that were made by the previous delegate, there was mistakes made in the past because neighbors didn't want to really turn each other down. And obviously, there was a staff reports. Did staff also support those mistakes, or did staff recommend not to make those mistakes, and the mistakes were made anyway in those circumstances? Would you have the history on that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the format was different. We did not provide staff comment forms because it was undertaken at the local level with the Churchville Heritage Committee. Staff did make those comments, but again, not backed by a staff comment form in any formal capacity.
I see. Now, can I ask the lady, sorry, was there is there a theme in Churchville? I have never been through there, I'm ashamed to say. I've been invited many times to tour, but I've never been. But is there a theme, or was there a theme? Are we trying to keep that theme that was there? I look at these pictures, for instance, and I see particularly on page F2 116.
I'm sorry, I don't have that.
Okay, maybe. So I see the bottom there. You see three houses. There's one on the left that probably looks like what Churchville may have looked like originally, because I see this in Marysfield, where I live in Ward 10. There's a little subdivision that was basically that type of housing, and now there's new people coming in, tearing down these older houses and putting up new houses, and they're putting up what they look like next door in the middle. And if the theme of the Heritage Village was to be what's on the left, it's certainly what I see on these pictures. They're certainly the theme has been lost, because the house in the center there looks more like a house in Springdale or Castlemore today that they're building today. Look at page F2 114, and I don't see no resemblance of a heritage theme on that house whatsoever. I don't know if this was one of the mistakes. Same as the one in F113. Now, I don't know whether, you probably would know whether the theme has been lost in the village, or whether there's still hope for the theme to survive.
Through the chair. Originally, the purpose as far as the villagers was it was right at the beginning of Monster Homes. So we were preventing that in Churchville, which was a modest village. So we agreed to a zoning bylaw which restricted height, and then it was a floor area formula, then it became 2,500 square feet was what it worked out, then now it's 2,750. So that's the zoning restrictions, and then the heritage restrictions are it's about 5 pages in the guidelines for, so yes. So vernacular architecture is also another theme in Churchville. Very difficult to define what vernacular architecture is. And at one time, the province, who administers the act, had what I call a piece of propaganda, had a printout that was not the act, but about the act, that said that modern construction should be used in heritage districts to differentiate between the old houses, so that new houses were clearly new, but still were blending in. The trouble with Churchville is it was built over such a long era we're at 200 years now. And so 175 years of building styles. And it's hard to design a house to fit in 175 years of building style. And that's what the guidelines are attempting to have us do.
I see. Well,
There is hope for church.
So in other words, there's been an evolution from the beginning till today. So the evolution, our delegation would like the evolution to continue. And our Heritage Board members are saying, stop the evolution. We want to draw the line in the sand today, and we don't want to, so we're taking a hard stand, basically. But, you know, I see these homes here with these wraparound porches and some balconies, and, you know, I really don't see why they wouldn't fit in to what's already there.
Do you have questions of the delegations? Because I'm
so just a comment.
Just get to the questions, okay?
So just I just want to make a comment now, Madam Mayor, if I can.
You just did, actually.
Yeah. And rather than come back again on the board? You want me to make my comments?
I think we
now?
had some comments the other day, and this is just for clarification of the delegations today.
And I appreciate that they brought this information before us, so at least we could see what we're dealing with.
Okay.
So I finished my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Plushy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I ask Harry to come on back down for a minute? Say hello to Harry. How's Trudy doing?
Fine, thanks.
Good, very good. Harry, I'm a little bit confused in this whole thing. We've heard some comments about how the Heritage Board, didn't do things strictly by the book.
Heritage Advisory Committee, Church
Advisory Committee.
A little different than the board.
And they reported directly to the Heritage Board, or they sent their minutes through the Heritage Board?
Went through the Heritage Board.
And then it was the Heritage Board's responsibility to go through those and continue any comments or make changes if necessary?
Yeah, that was a responsibility of the board, but I think basically what happened is if Churchville Heritage Advisory Committee approved it, the board more or less, not understanding up until recently, having visited the village, all the board members, the situation we were in, and it was basically my belief, basically rubber stamped by the board and then rubber stamped by council, if that's the right term to use.
Okay. From somebody that lives in Churchville, and I've been through Churchville a lot of times, and I know Churchville very well. From what I see on the plans, and in reality, we're talking about a balcony, a wraparound balcony, and a wraparound porch and a balcony.
Yeah,
that's is essentially what we're talking about. With houses in Churchville having those currently. There was also some comments about there's two kind of barriers or boundaries in Churchville. One being the core, and then another being just Churchville as a whole. And I've never heard that before. And it's not referenced on paper or anything like that. So I guess my question as a board member is how can we say this now? If we're saying stop the precedence has already been set. How can we say this now to these people that we don't want those two items on your house when there are other houses already within the boundary?
Just backing up a little bit, if you look at the original guidelines, it's been brought up that balconies and porches, wraparound porches, were not mentioned in the guidelines. And I would think that they weren't mentioned in the guidelines because there weren't any in Churchville when the guidelines were drawn up. Otherwise, they would have been included in the guidelines.
So the guidelines are now saying that these are the items that we will allow on a go-forward basis. Do they not have guidelines saying these are the items that we will not allow?
They're still referring to the past guidelines, which did not refer to balconies or wraparound porches. Pardon?
When you finish, maybe we can get staff to respond as well.
I guess that would be my comment. They weren't put in guidelines because there weren't any in the village at the time that they were written. And they are presently being rewritten that would probably include these, as they are not typical of the Churchville area wraparound porches.
Okay, Harry, thanks so much for coming down. I guess the same questions to our staff is how do we have a right to tell somebody that they can't do this when there are other houses in the area that have this already?
Through you, Madam Chair. They're not common in the area, and as has been stated, the guidelines, they are guidelines. First of all, they were established and revised in 2007. They're under review right now, and in the review, we will be looking at tightening them up somewhat and addressing issues that have come up since 2007 when we've been reviewing them. They're silent on them now, and so we don't have those guidelines to refer to. As I say, the wraparound porches and balconies are not common in the Churchville. We're not saying that they don't exist, but they're not common. So we're not saying that that's something that staff is fine with limiting and saying no balconies and surrounding porch. We support that, but we did not make that recommendation because it wasn't part of a guideline right now.
I guess my last question then is do we really feel that a wraparound porch and a balcony takes away from the heritage charm or feel of the Churchville district? Just the porch and a balcony.
I think the concern that we have, and it was brought up at the PNIS committee when I was asked, would this set a precedent? And of course, if we have future applications, then people will be able to point to that this has been permitted. So rather than it being not common, it may become common. And yes, we do have some concerns on that.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Dillon.
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor. So, pardon my sore throat. I believe Mr. Willoughby had come on Monday as well, and I was asking him questions, and I stated that a lot of my questions are out of ignorance in an attempt to learn in terms of the heritage homes, and I believe some of the buildings I've seen, they're very beautiful, and I think we're able to drive through the area. I think the area itself is very good looking. But the question I have is, trying to wrap my head around it, is that we're talking about precedent. I'm looking at you, but I don't know who the question is to. The precedent has been, there is precedent where we do have these similar types of modifications made, I guess, or the wraparound porches. And from what I'm understanding is that the people who were sitting on the board were neighbors with the people who were allowed these modifications. Is that correct? So essentially that the board allowed.
Just to clarify, it was the advisory committee.
Advisory committee.
That they're referring to,
Right.
not the Heritage Board. Yes.
Okay, so can you just very quickly just tell me the difference between the committee and the board?
So previous to this term of council, there was a Churchville Heritage Advisory Committee in addition to the Brampton Heritage Board.
Which was affiliated with the city, though, the committee?
Both were affiliated with the city, Madam Chair. However, the advisory committee met and made recommendations that went to then the Heritage Board.
Right.
The Heritage Board recommendations came to you as council through the minutes.
Right, so I'm in favor of maintaining the heritage, but I'm also just, I find it peculiar that members of the committee would make favor for the, I don't know, I wouldn't call it favors, but allow for some of the residents who are the neighbors to have these modifications made. And I don't think it's fair. I think the precedent has been set by the advisory committee. So I think, just to echo some of the sentiments of the other councils, I think I think it's a fairness thing now. The precedent has been set, and I don't believe it is fair for Mr. Arthur for these to be put against him now, whereas the advisory committee themselves allowed it before. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilor Medeiros?
Just quickly through you, Madam Mayor, to staff. So based on my understanding, again, the staff were silent on, or the Heritage Act is silent on those 2 points which are in dispute right now. Second point, my understanding is staff were not fussed, or staff did not find it a reason to stop this applicant, or did not have an opinion on it because the act is silent on these two. My third point being is there anything that would allow us to accept the proponent, Mr. MacArthur, and support his endeavor to do that wraparound, but then after put a cease to any further based on the review in which staff has suggested that they will be reviewing to ensure that, this would be sort of a mitigation. It would allow us to deal with this specific applicant, but at the same time allow us to do our due diligence going forth.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, you're correct, and just the guideline, it's guidelines, not
guidelines.
The Heritage Act, so just so that you're clear on that. But you're right that we were silent on it, and so we did not make those recommendations because they were not in the guidelines. And in review of the guidelines, as I mentioned, it's really close to being completed now, the review. And in that, we are looking at challenges that we've faced since they were revised back in 2007, and we'll be addressing that. So it's possible, for sure, that we would be coming forward with a guideline around full wraparound porches and balconies in the revised guidelines.
Thank you.
Councillor Scovieri.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Given a very serious thought on this matter, it would appear that these two elements are very important to the homeowner. I'm sure he's paying his representative to come here to council numerous times to try to get these two elements into the design, and obviously it's not cheap, and it's very important to him. He's spending a lot of money. I don't believe that he's really going against heritage because balconies and wraparound porches are found in heritage homes. So I really don't like going against the board's recommendation, but given the circumstances in this one, I tend to think that council can be flexible and support the request. So I'm going to move that.
So, Councillor Scovieri, we're not in those minutes yet, so okay. I want you to just get all your questions out, and then we'll move to the planning minutes when you can put a recommendation on, okay? At that point.
Just a question of clarification. Is this an addition to the house or a brand-new house? The old house is being torn and a brand-new house is being built?
Through you, Madam Mayor, they're demolishing the existing house. This will be a brand-new home.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Gibson.
I have no questions. I'm just ready for debate. So whenever you can allow us to do that, I'm ready.
Okay, so we're at the point now where we're going to, I think, move to J7. So, Councillor Moore, you chaired Planning and Infrastructure Services Committee meeting on December 7th. I now pass the chair to you to lead council in consideration of the committee minutes.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think in fairness to the delegations and to members of council, the summary of recommendations are before us. We don't have the minutes yet, as I understand it, with the meeting only taking place on Monday and it being a long and and a meeting with lots of additions. So I think at this point, I'll bring forward HB 078-2015. We'll deal with this heritage permit application recommendation, and then we'll go back to the rest of the minutes. So the floor is open for debate. Councillor Gibson.
Not quite sure where we are on this, because I know Councillor Willens moved a motion in planning that we receive and endorse the Heritage Board recommendations, and now Councillor Spovieri has done something contrary to that, but I'll let those two speak as they had motions. But I just wanted to say, heritage buildings over the years, or many years, not just at Brampton, but all over, mistakes have been made. And that doesn't mean we continue to make those mistakes. And I think what we're learning here, that we probably made a good decision not having the Churchville Heritage Advisory Committee anymore and having the Heritage Board oversee this. I'm tending to, I'm going to support the Heritage Board, because I think they've done a lot of work on this, and I think we need to listen to them. Because if we don't, I'm not sure what the next delegation is going to be in this area on what changes can be made. And if you're setting precedents to make changes on this one item or two items, then the next one could be something different. And we appoint people to the Heritage Board to give us advice on heritage, and I'm not saying that we always have to listen to them, but in this case, I think what we're hearing is mistakes are being made, and we have to stop allowing those mistakes to be made. So I am going to support, if somebody's going to move it, well, I won't support anything that'll change the recommendation from the Heritage Board.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Spovieri.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, in my view, and I just want to talk from experience, my son and daughter-in-law actually restored a heritage home in the Gore Road area. And the Heritage Board was involved. The house on the exterior was preserved to its entirety. The insides, there was some alterations were allowed because it was all gutted and rebuilt. But the exterior is authentic. It's preserving heritage in its true nature. To me, when I look at this Churchville village, that has not occurred. That the heritage has not occurred. The homes have been changed. You got different styles. You get different sizes, and the pictures I see here is what I see. So I don't believe that there's heritage elements in these. What I see, there are many elements, which is a nice thing, and we know that porches and balconies are they are very common in heritage homes. My son's house has a balcony, and it also has a porch around the two sides of it. So for that reason, if the intent was to protect the houses in its entirety, to protect the homes as they were built originally, I would totally be supportive of the objective. But in this case, there's been many styles, there's been many changes, there's been many different sizes of homes, and I don't see causing this hardship on this particular homeowner that is trying to spending a lot of money, and he's trying to create something that is really important to him or to the family. And these are two elements that obviously are. He's spending a lot of money trying to get what he's trying to get. They're not, in my opinion, and I believe we heard also that these elements are they are in the area, and I believe that council should be taking all this into account. And so I'm moving, Madam Mayor, that we support the request from the delegation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Palashi.
Chairman. Thank you.
I understand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In just listening to some of the delegates and having a side conversation here with my counterpart, in the area, and now listening to Councillor Gibson and some of the comments that were made by staff, I know how hard it is to make changes, and I understand the way the boards were put together, and I understand the complexity of the situation and trying to, in saying no to your neighbor. It makes not for the best livable area. But for the Heritage Board to put forward some guidelines and recommendations that specifically address these items, and for our staff to then turn and say, we agree with this, and we think that this should be something going forward. I understand what all parties are trying to do. I'm also glad that the delegate and the Heritage Board were able to come together and meet on a number of issues that were unresolved. And I'm happy to say that, looking from this side of the table, that those 9 items that you came to agree on, I think that was a win for sure. So, that being said, and some of the comments, and I tend to agree with Councillor Gibson that it's tough to change the mindsets, but it needs to start somewhere. So I'm going to support my council colleague in putting forward the recommendations on the Heritage Board, and I think that this can be looked on as change and something good for the area.
Thank you. Councillor Medeiros.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just a question before we move the minutes. This is on another item. I'd like to pull out. Do I wait for we vote on this item?
Can I ask you to wait? I do have a motion to amend the recommendations.
Sure.
That is moved by Councillor Sprovieri and seconded by Councillor Medeiros. If I can ask you to turn to page 12 of 15, the proposed amendment by Councillor Sprovieri and Councillor Medeiros is that clauses 3, 7, and 3.8 in recommendation HB 078 2015 be deleted. So if we can deal with this recommendation, then we'll go back and do the rest of the minutes as a package.
Thank you.
So the recommendation on the floor is to remove those 2 clauses on page 12 of 15 under recommendation 078. Does anybody wish to speak on the amendments? Then I will call the vote on the proposed amendment to the resolution. All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion fails. The motion then is as printed in the agenda. Councillor Gibson.
Can move the Heritage Board recommendations.
Okay. Pardon me? You're going to have to arm wrestle the area councillors for that.
No, go ahead, please. I just wanted to stop more debate on this, so
Okay.
go ahead, you guys.
All those in favor on the recommendation HB 078 as printed in the agenda. All those in favor? All those in favor? That's opposed? That's carried. Members of committee, we'll go back just in terms of, these were just handed out this morning, and it seemed like we barely adjourned the meeting and we're back approving the recommendations. But in terms of a high-level overview of the meeting on Monday night, there were a number of additions and changes to the agenda. We had a study update on the GTA West Transportation Corridor. We had correspondence handed out on the transfer of Coleraine Drive from the City of Brampton to the Region of Peel, and some correspondence on a proposed official plan amendment for the Mayfield West Phase 2 secondary plan. We also had 3 public meetings. 2 were city-initiated, one on the older mature neighbors area, and another really was a housekeeping public meeting for to correct some zoning in on a registered plan. And there were 2 public delegations in Ward 6. One was at Goreway Drive, on Goreway Drive, and the other was on Steeles Avenue West on Mississauga Road. We also had a presentation for the Municipal Comprehensive Review, and staff will be reporting back following an open house on that meeting. And we had a presentation on the Central Area Community Improvement Plan. And as a result of the discussion and the debate, there will be a future presentation at an upcoming economic development committee so that we fully understand the implications financially, but also the benefits of having a community improvement plan. There was a rezoning application for a property on Kennedy Road South. The staff report recommended refusal of the application. There was a subsequent recommendation put forward by Councillor Bowman that approved the application subject to a number of restrictions and clauses in the agreement to protect the golf club and any future property owners there. We also approved the terms of reference for the landowners group for the Heritage Heights Community Secondary Plan Area 52 and 53 moving forward. That's going to include all landowners in that part of the world, and we had a couple of demolition permits, as well as the Heritage Board minutes and recommendations for approval, and some subcommittee reports for the Cycling Advisory Committee and the Environmental Committee. It was a pretty packed agenda. Would someone like to move the recommendations as printed? Councillor Medeiros, you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to reopen, I actually have some staff questions, but I also would like to reopen the motion put forth regarding Kennedy Road South. That's 299-215. I'd like to request a recorded vote on it. But before so, I'd like to address some questions to staff.
Okay.
Thank you. So first question again goes to staff. Regarding the traffic, so has a traffic study been done? And I say that because 2 things. One of the things which we didn't talk about at the Planning Committee, especially with the impact of the LRT, because we're stopping it at Steeles and Her Ontario. I would assume, and again, I'm not an expert, but I would assume in terms of diversion that a lot of traffic would be rediverted either by McLaughlin or to Kennedy. So is there potential to even create greater havoc on that Kennedy Street? Second, how do we deal with the safety concern, which was rightly raised by Councillor Spoveri? So if we can't put traffic lights there because of proximity to other traffic lights, how does a car coming out of that complex make a left turn, for example? What steps would we take? So again, it's around the traffic study, it's regarding the safety concern and potential impact of LRT. That's my first sort of question, 2 parts.
Through you, Madam Mayor, there was a transportation impact study done as part of the application. We requested that be done by the applicant in support of the application being put forward. And it would not have specifically addressed the potential for additional traffic as a result of the LRT stopping at Steeles, so it would not have addressed that specifically. And based on the number of units proposed, the results of the study indicated from a technical standpoint that there wouldn't be signalization required and that the road network could handle the application. So that the information provided to us did, from a technical standpoint, didn't raise concerns.
Now, with the I guess LRT decision now, and that being a hub there on Steeles and Her Ontario, does that not have any impact? Are we going to be looking at that during this process, I guess, with the applicant, or does that not have any impact, you would say?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we haven't considered that, and I'm not a traffic expert, so I'm not sure that would be. All I can say is it wasn't addressed.
Okay. My other question is regarding the potential area for employment lands. So by us, because when you look at that pocket in a whole, it's a potential, for down the future, especially in light of the context of the conversations we had during planning meeting, in relation to one of the motions put forth by Councillor Dillon, which was looking at our conversions and why the rationale for our conversions. Now, that in itself as employment lands, wouldn't that be, does that sort of impede, or would that affect? Because my basic, understanding is that, by putting this little development there, it might potentially tie our hands for future employment land use. Can you provide comments on that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the staff report did indicate that. As you know, the staff report recommended refusal of this application, and one of the key reasons being that we believe that a comprehensive study of that area should be completed before approving any development. And we will be looking at the employment potential of those lands and surrounding lands as part of a further study.
Through you, Madam Chair, but so it was quite highlighted the negative impact it could have on the usage of employment lines. So just my last question then, because throughout the motion it talks about the satisfying the Chief Planning and Infrastructure Officer. Now to me it's hard to fathom. I'm just trying to find the logic of it. If the report itself from staff said, pointed to all these reasons which have been raised to support the applicant, but yet in the motion we're saying that we have to satisfy the Planning and Infrastructure Officer, which in fact is going to be based on staff reports. Is this an exercise? I'm just wondering how effective this motion will be if our staff report saying that it doesn't address it currently. So how are we ever going to address and satisfy, the Chief Planning and Infrastructure Officer?
Well, through you, Madam Mayor, we, from a planning staff perspective, we have reviewed the application, all of the information that we've received through commenting agencies, and our recommendation is for refusal. If directed by council, if you as a council approve the application with conditions for us to address, that will be direction to us to work through those with the applicant, and we will take that direction and work to attempt to resolve those issues.
Okay, thank you. So is that the city clerk or to the chief or to the chair? I'd like to request a recorded vote at this time.
Yeah, that's been noted.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Palashi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that I don't know if we touched on it a lot about the golf course and what we would eventually put there if the golf course ever sold. The way the kind of the valley works in there and the other houses around it, we would continue with the residential subdivision or subdivisions in that area, right? We wouldn't think to put employment land in there, would we?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we would be looking at all possible land uses and what makes sense for that area through a study. Mm-hmm. And due to its proximity to the 410 and backing on the 407, we would be taking that into account in terms of land use compatibility.
Oh, I'm sure we would, but I think we would also take into account that area is an older established residential area, so I'm not sure how the two would coincide, where not much of, I'm just trying to think of other areas in Brampton more established and having the two butt up against each other. I can't think of many.
So through you, Madam Mayor, we would be looking closely at it. We would directed by, as you say, the report on the MCR was also on that, and so you're very much aware of how important it is for us to put lands aside for employment and to retain them. So we would be looking at all possible land uses.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Councillor Gibson.
I'm actually surprised to hear that because I've been around for a while, and I remember when we got the lands right across the street from the province. We didn't have to buy the lands. They were kind of, here they are, take them off our hands, because they were protected properties. They were properties that we couldn't use it for anything other than the recreational use on them. So I'm surprised to hear that we would even consider employment lands on there. Residential, maybe, but I'm always shocked to hear that, and I'm a little shocked. I think that maybe the golf course might be, if they're ever contemplating on selling, that we might be thinking about considering employment lands on those properties. So, it's something to consider in the long run, when right across the street we had protected lands that couldn't use for anything, but we weren't allowed to take them and sell them and put housing on them or employment lands. We were given the properties to use for what they're being used for today, and that's recreation, right across the street.
Okay. Through you, Madam
Thank
Mayor,
you.
just a comment on when those lands were previously part of the Parkway Belt West, and as such were not able to be used for other uses, but they are no longer part of the Parkway Belt West, so that they would be part of our study.
Maybe then we should consider to cross the street and have employment lands right there too. Makes our property worth a lot more. I doubt we will be allowed to do that though.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. A recorded vote has been requested on PNIS 299-2015. It's on page 5 of 15 of the recommendations from Planning and Infrastructure Services. All those in favor, would you please stand?
All in favor of the motion, please stand to be counted. Showing in favor of the motion is Councillor Miles.
Sorry, it's the motion on, as printed in the agenda. Sorry, there was no amendment moved to it, so it is as printed in the agenda. It's the staff no, it is the motion put forward by Councillor Jeff Bowman at the meeting. That is the recommendation that was approved at the Planning and Infrastructure Services. That's why I referred you to page 5 of 15.
The chair is correct. That is the motion that carried at Planning Committee on Monday evening. It's PIS 299-2015. All in favor of the recommendation, please stand to be counted. Showing in favor of the recommendation is Chair Moore, Councillor Willens, Councillor Paleshi, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Miles, Councillor Gibson. All opposed to the motion, please stand to be counted. Showing opposed to the motion is Councillor Sprovieri, Councillor Dillon, Mayor Jeffrey, Councillor Medeiros, and Councillor Fortini. Madam Chair, the motion carries 6-5.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I'll now ask and call a vote on the remaining recommendations for the Planning and Infrastructure Services meeting of December the 7th. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I turn it back to you.
Where are we in the agenda?
No, I'm trying to follow the bouncing ball. There were no amendments, so it's not amended minutes, right? No, nothing changed.
And actually, I should have turned them back to you to call the vote.
No, it's okay. No, I'm fine. So we just have the summary of the recommendations, Planning Infrastructure Service Committee meeting of December 7th be received, and the recommendations be approved, and we just voted on that. Okay? So going back to our agenda, our next item is Report H3-1, titled Enterprise Software Licensing, Maintenance, Support, and Consulting Services, Renewals, Various Tenders. Are there any questions from any members? Mr. Clerk, do I have a motion? Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, the only question I have, were these awarded with a certain value, and the value of that contract has escalated? Or, I guess it's unusual that we see a motion like this, or a recommendation like this. So did we previously award contracts, as it says, the following contracts will or have surpassed the $1 million value? So that leads me to believe that we awarded a contract that had a value of less than $1 million, and it has escalated above that. So if you could just clarify.
That's correct. Those contracts were tendered, and an amount was awarded, and we continue with those, with amending the amount because the contracts are still in force.
Okay, so can you help me to understand how much beyond the original award they have gone? Like, was it for, I'll use the first one, for example, on H3-1. Was the original award of that contract $1 million and it's escalated to $2.9 million?
I don't have that information with me right now. The amount that you see there is the amount that we are extending the contract to. And those amounts are for a 4-year period.
Okay. It really doesn't answer what I think I'm trying to get at, and that is how much beyond the original award have these gone? And, you know, I guess maybe having read the MFP inquiry report, where a contract escalated to the point where it required a whole inquiry, I just want to make sure that we've got the built-in safeguards. I understand that you're coming back to council on these, but I don't want to approve them blindly.
Through the chair, the report is actually an information report. Under the purchasing bylaw, we're required to report any contracts exceeding $1 million. And so that's what the report is for. It's basically an information report. We do that on an annual basis. This is the second time that I've provided this report to council. There was one made earlier this year in January for the previous year.
Okay. Well, I guess we can have the conversation at a future corporate services committee. I'm just trying, I think as stewardship over these types of matters, I just think we need to be confident that contracts are not being extended at a time when perhaps we should be retendering.
Chief Simmons?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. Your point's well taken, Councillor, and I think a takeaway for staff will be perhaps at an appropriate Corporate Services Committee meeting to have that discussion with Council as to the process through which we go through. To seek Council approval to begin procurement, award the contract, and then how it is that we work our way through these successive improvements to the contract. So we're happy to bring that discussion back in the early part of the new year.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Council, I have a motion moved by Councillor Pellecci, seconded by Councillor Bowman, that the report H3-1 regarding enterprise software licensing, maintenance, support, and consulting services renewals, various tenders be received. All those in favor? All those opposed? That's carried. Our next item is report H3-2 titled Request for Special Consideration for Non-Compliance of Purchasing Bylaw 35, 2012, Section 9.3.1, Consulting Services to provide a high-level review and assessment to City of Brampton services. Are there any questions from members? Seeing none, I have a motion moved by Councillor Pellecci, seconded by Councillor Willens, that the report be received and that the treasurer be authorized to issue a purchase order and that the purchase authority be in accordance with the purchasing bylaw. All those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. We're now at committee reports or minutes. We have, I think, now 4 sets of minutes. Under Council's meeting procedures, the committee chair introduces their committee report or minutes and summarizes the matters considered and that are now being brought forward to Council today for ratification. Councillor Willens, you chaired the Strategic Plan Implementation Committee, which met on November 24th. I now pass the chair to you to lead Council in consideration of the committee minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We had the Strategic Plan Implementation Committee on November 24th. There are a few, there's something was brought forward by the Mayor, which was the 100 Resilient Cities, and I believe that the application has gone forward. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And there was some discussions took place with respect to the strategic plan. I'll just go through a few of them. The flexibility of the plan and alignment with the budget priorities, identifying deliverables and measuring the plan's success, communicating the plan to the public, clarification that the assessment need for seniors facility in the east end of Brampton will be dealt with through Parks and Recreation Master Plan, status of the fire campus development, initiative to protect employment land and need to promote available spaces near major arterial roads, and development of an economic development master plan, and I will pass it back to you for clarification.
And I guess what I would like to do before we vote on this is to say congratulations. We've got a strategic plan, I believe, and to thank Chief Ball, if you could pass that on to the staff that have been working on this. This has been a long exercise for us, so this is good news. And we have the minutes moved by Councillor Willen, seconded by Councillor Pellicci, that the minutes of the Strategic Plan Implementation Committee meeting of November 24th be received and the recommendations in the subject minutes be approved. All those in favor? All those opposed? That's carried. Councillors Moore, Dillon, and Medeiros, you are council representatives on the Inclusion and Equity Committee, which met on November 26th. And I'm going to turn the chair over to Councillor. Okay, Councillor Moore, apparently you drew the short straw. I'm going to turn it to you.
Thank you. I was voluntold. But actually, it's my pleasure to do it. The Inclusion and Equity Committee met for our inaugural meeting on November 26th, and as part of the meeting, we did a roundtable, and all of the citizen appointees introduced themselves and a bit of their background. And I have to tell you, it is an exceptional committee. I think I speak on behalf of Councillor Medeiros and Councillor Dillon when I say we're really looking forward to working with these folks and all of the background and the talent that they bring and the commitment that they bring to the table. What is also particularly refreshing is that we had a number of city staff who also interviewed to sit on the committee. So we have that connection within the organization and the community and the political arm of the organization. They didn't elect a chair or a vice chair for the committee. I think they wanted to, get to know each other a little bit better, and I don't think anybody knew each other well enough to make a nomination. But I'll tell you, any one of them around the table will, I think, are prepared to step up to the plate and do it, and will do an incredible job for us. It's very exciting. Some direction was given to staff to start working on preparing for a work plan for the committee. So they're pretty eager to roll up their sleeves and get busy. Thank you.
I have a motion moved by Councillor Medeiros, seconded by Councillor Moore, that the minutes of the Inclusion and Equity Committee meeting of November 26th be received and the recommendations be approved. All those in favor? All those opposed? That's carried. Councillor Williams, you chaired the Citizen Appointments Committee, which met on December 2nd. I now pass the chair to you to lead council in consideration of the minutes.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. I'm pleased to report that the Citizens Appointments Committee met briefly in between the standing committees on December 2nd to update ourselves on the need for additional citizen members for advisory committees. We had to address 2 vacancies on the Brampton School Safety Council. We asked the clerk to contact former committee members to determine if they would serve again. I understand that contact has been made successful, and with the appointment of an alternate member as a full-time member, the committee is back in full strength with no delay. We're also asked to address quickly the reestablishment of the Taxi Cab Advisory Committee. We have asked the clerk's office to survey former members of this committee and determine any taxi cab industry members who would like to serve again. One of our recommendations is to advertise in the media for 2 citizen members for that committee. We are in good shape for the future with the 13 alternate members available for the other committees to draw if and when vacancy occurs. There is also some recommendation to address advertising in the media for citizens to serve on the review panels for the new Arts and Culture panel. And I do have an amendment that, if needed be, should be determined necessary. City staff will be requested to undertake a citizens recruitment process in accordance with the citizens appointments procedure for appointments to the citizens-based community grant review panel established to advise council on the community grant program. So that's if needed. And I turn it back to you, Madam Mayor, for council consideration.
A motion by Councillor Willens, seconded by Councillor Moore, that the minutes as amended of the Citizen Appointments Committee meeting of December 2nd be received and the recommendations be approved. All those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Councillor Gibson, you chaired Community and Public Services Committee meeting on December 2nd. The minutes for this meeting were distributed to Council at the start of today's meeting. I now pass the chair to you to lead Council in consideration of the committee minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Some of the highlights of the committee, we had a delegation from Dale Pine, our Manager of Facility Support Services, on Brampton Transit's Energy Conservation Award, a very good news story about Brampton Transit receiving the recipient of the Mayor's Megawatt Challenge Award promoted by the TRCA for energy savings efforts in water, electricity, gas, and greenhouse gas emissions. We also had a report from Recreation and Program Coordinator Diane Butterworth on an update on transition of the Clean City program. Also, we had an update report from Donalyn Rosa of Recreation and Culture Public Services on affiliated status of Peel Association for Handicapped Adults. And we had a report from Todd Porter, Project Manager, Building Design and Construction, on the press box removal and replacement at Memorial Arena at 68 Elliott. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, Madam Mayor, I'll pass them back to you for ratification.
Thank you, Councillor. I have a motion moved by Councillor Gibson, second by Councillor Moore, that minutes Community and Public Services Committee meeting of December 2nd be received and the recommendations be approved. All those in favor? All those opposed? That's carried. Councillor Bowman, you chaired Economic Development Committee meeting on December 2nd. I now pass the chair to you to lead Council in consideration of the committee minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. On December 2nd, we had our Economic Development Committee meeting, during which we had a delegation from Pam Banks from the RIC Center, and she talked to us about involvement in the program for next year. She provided us details on funding, deliverables, community outreach support, and the initiatives and events and innovation roundtable. Motion was considered that we continue to participate in that, and that was passed. We also had a presentation from Dennis Cuttajar and Bill Grant on the community grant program for 2016 and beyond. That was a rather lengthy discussion on what transpired, how we're going to consult forward with Brampton and Caledon Community Living, who have graciously agreed to work with us. Foundation changes proposed by staff, changes to the grant-making framework for next year as well, program exceptions and key recommendations. We also had a motion for that, and it was considered, and the budget was kept the same as it was last year, and we will be putting through the new community grant program with some sort of advisory council, with which Councillor Willens just spoke of as well. We also had a talk about the Santa Claus Parade and how invitations are handed out to council and staff, and we will be getting some information back at a future date on providing all councillors with the opportunity to be in the parade next year. Any questions? Seeing none, Madam Mayor, I pass it back to you for ratification.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Bowman, seconded by Councillor Willens, that the minutes of the Economic Development Committee meeting of December 2nd be received and the recommendations be approved. All in favor? All opposed? That's carried. Councillor Medeiros, you chaired Corporate Services Committee meeting on December 2nd. I now pass the chair to you to lead Council in the consideration of the minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On December 2nd, at Corporate Services Committee, we were honored to have the Honorable Mr. Bill Davis, as Chair of the University Blue Ribbon Panel, provide us an update along with other members who attended regarding the establishment of University Campus in Brampton. We also were presented along with the Manager of Corporate Development and Strategy, Ms. Michelle McCullum, and consultants regarding an economic impact study regarding the university capacity expansion. Also, the delegation, there was a request for an extension in the deadline of installation of cameras in taxi cabs, which was carried. And we also discussed the merits of reestablishing a taxi cab advisory committee, which also was carried. And finally, we had a presentation by Mr. Thomas Plant, the Director of Strategic and Enterprise Services, regarding unsolicited proposals. That carried as well. Are there any questions or comments? Pass it back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councilor Madero, second by Councilor Fortini. The summary of recommendations from Corporate Services Committee meeting of December 2nd be received and the recommendations be approved. All those in favor? All those opposed? That's carried. Our next item is added item P1A, P1, a report to Council regarding the meeting of the Board of Directors, Federation of Canadian Municipalities, FCM, Ottawa, November 17th to 20th. Councillor Dillon, you added this item. You have the floor. If you want to put yourself on the board.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to table a summary report from the recent Federation of Canadian Municipalities Board of Directors meeting in Ottawa, November 18th to the 20th. The major highlights included a review of FCM advocacy to federal parties during the election, the federal election, as well as steps to be taken to hold the new government accountable to the promises they made pertaining to the municipal infrastructure funding in Budget 2016. FCM welcomed the government's efforts in receiving new Syrian refugees and acknowledged the role municipalities will play by requesting adequate assistance with investments in social housing, increased and targeted funding for resettlement agencies, and establishing the necessary groundwork be laid for long-term success for this historic initiative. There's also a review of the one-third funding model, its viability, and potential for reform. Members of Council, before you are all the standing committee summary reports from the Ottawa meeting, which have been provided by the Clerk's Office, including the two I sit on, Community Safety and Crime Prevention, and Municipal Finance. I want to thank Deb Reeder for her assistance and fellow council members for giving me the opportunity to represent the City of Brampton on the FCM Board of Directors. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Welcome. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, I have a motion moved by Councillor Dillon, seconded by Councillor Medeiros, that this verbal report, P1, be received. All those in favor? All those opposed? That's carried. Our next item is Report Q1, titled Request for Proposal RFP 2015-091, Banking Services for the City of Brampton for a 5-year period. Are there any questions from members? Seeing none, I have a motion moved by Councillor Plushy, seconded by Councillor Miles, that the report be received, that the procurement be awarded, and the contract be approved. All those in favor? All those opposed? That's carried. Council, tomorrow is the Region Appeal Council meeting. Deborah Reeder, the CAO's office, provided all members yesterday with a briefing note on this meeting. She's here today in case members have questions or comments. And I'm guessing Councillor Gibson will do what he normally does, which is, can you give us a quick overview? So I'm just anticipating. So Deborah, would you like to come up and give us a quick overview? See, I'm reading your mind now. Yep. Yep. Welcome.
Executive leadership team, Councillor Gibson, I really thought you were going to let me off today. Tomorrow's regional council meeting is brief. There are actually listed, there are no delegations listed. There are a number of reports from committees. There are a number of housekeeping items. It is the last meeting of the year for regional council. There will be the minutes of last week's regional council budget meeting, so you will be ratifying the approval of the region's budget at that time. There were only 2 items that I provided you with some briefing notes on that were relevant for council. The first was the region's report on their interim regional requisition bylaw. Within the approval of today's Corporate Services Committee, you did approve the city's interim bylaw, so that needed to follow before tomorrow's vote, so that will go very well, and there's some additional information in there if you wish. There is also a report that the region prepares annually on their traffic and road safety performance report. Michael Parks, our Director of Traffic, took a look at this, and he is very familiar with it and does work with the region staff over the course of the year. He provides you with a bit of additional information as to how the city coordinates with the region and how the city also reports on traffic concerns. So that is all I have for you today.
Okay. You did such a good job, there's no question. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Gibson, second by Councillor Dillon, that the verbal update from Deborah Rita regarding the December 10th Regional Council meeting be received. All in favor? All opposed? That's carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're at public question period. Now we can deal with S, public question period. This is where we invite members of the public to come forward to the podium, ask any questions about any decision made by council at today's meeting. There's a 15-minute time limit for all questions and answers. Are there any questions to the public about a decision made today at our council meeting? Going once, going twice. Okay. Very much. We are now at the portion of the meeting dealing with the adoption of the city bylaws to give effect to council's decisions made at this meeting and previous meetings. I have a motion moved by Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor Paleshi to approve the bylaws. All those in favor? All those opposed? That's carried. Our next item of business is item U, closed session business. I have a motion moved by Councillor Willen, seconded by Councillor Fortini, that this council proceed into closed session to discuss matters pertaining to the following. U1, minutes closed session, City Council, November 25th. U2, minutes closed session, Community and Public Services Committee, December 2nd. U3, minutes closed session, Corporate Services Committee, December 2nd. U4, acquisition costs for municipal property, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. U5, personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, an identifiable individual. U6, labor relations or employee negotiations matter, collective agreement matter, re part-time employees CUPE, and U7, labor relations or employee negotiations matter, collective agreement matter, re amalgamated transit union ATU. All those in favor? All those opposed? That's carried.
Mayor Jeffrey, before we recess?
Yep.
I just wanted to point out an oversight. In council, in deferring item H4-4 this morning on Clarence Street, council inadvertently at the same time passed bylaw 307. So my request would be to reopen approval of the bylaws so that bylaw 307 can be removed, and it should be deferred to the council meeting on January 27th when that matter comes back. 307, bylaw 307.
So we need a motion.
And 308, and 308. One is the zoning bylaw amendment, the other is the official plan amendment.
So Councilor Medeiros has agreed to remove it, and then what do we do? We have to defer?
It would be a two-thirds to reopen.
Okay.
And because there is no council authority for those bylaws to be passed.
Okay.
And then those bylaws would be deferred to the January 27th council meeting along with the deferral that carried from Councillor Bowman's motion.
Okay. So all in favor of the, what is that, an opening? Reopening. You think you have two-thirds? Okay. And then Councillor Medeiros is going to refer it to the 27th? So it will be part of that agenda. Okay? Okay. All in favor? That's carried. This meeting is now recessed in order for council to consider its closed session business in the council committee room. All meetings of council must start and end in public session. After closed session is completed, council will reconvene in public session in the council chambers to complete its business on today's agenda, including reporting out on any actions arising from its closed session portion of the meeting, passing a confirming bylaw to confirm the proceedings and decisions of this meeting, and adjourning the meeting. Yes. Yes, we can.